A longbow is long, a recurve bow has a recurve, and a horse bow is made from horse. This is NUSensei. Thank you for watching. And it's not that easy, is it? When most people think of horse bows or talk about horse bows, they think of this kind of bow, this particular design and shape. And if you go online and you shop for horse bows, this is what you're getting. Now, as simple as that might be, this actually presents an interesting conundrum, especially for people in the Asiatic traditional archery community, because a horse bow is actually a bit of a misnomer. And as we unpack the terminology, we might find that there's no actual name that accurately describes these kinds of bows. As a baseline, what do most people think when they mention horse bow? It's this kind of bow. So this particular bow is an Ishvan toss Mongol bow, and it has most of the characteristics which people recognize as being distinct or unique to a horse bow. So typically you have a reflexed or double reflex bow. Often you find seers or these long elongated tips at the very end. They're normally very short, and of course they can be held and shot ambidextrously. In the Mediterranean world, I'm talking about ancient Rome and ancient Greece, the dominant form of archery would have been foot archery. The exposure to horse archery would have come from exposure to Eastern peoples. In the ancient Greek world, it was the Scythians which brought the idea of mounted archery to the Greek world. Most Greeks actually didn't practice archery and warfare, so it was kind of exotic to see these mounted archers using a different kind of bow, as is depicted in ancient Greek artwork and pottery. The Romans would not use horse archers as part of their main army. They would use tribes for auxilia, and they would recruit horse archers as part of their campaigns. And later on, far later on in Roman history, they would have their own corps of mounted archers. Many cultures which used bows on horseback used very similar designs. The Huns, the Turks, the Mongols, the Persians, the Parthians, the Scythians, and so on. So visually, this kind of bow would have been synonymous with horse archery. There are, however, a couple of problems with calling these bows horse bows. The first is that you can actually use nearly every bow type from horseback, and people actually did. Even the English longbow could be used from horseback. So it's kind of a misnomer to call these horse bows when any bow could be a horse bow. The second problem is that, well, many of these horse bows actually weren't used from horseback. Obviously, you can use this on foot or on horseback. Just the fact that this particular bow is short means it's probably more suitable from horseback. But there are also similar designs which are much larger and very purposefully designed to be shot on foot. For example, some of the Ming bows or the Qing bows or Manchu bows, which have the same fundamental design, were very clearly shot from foot and only from foot. So it's not exactly a horse bow when similar bows were meant to be shot from horseback. Well, we can't call them horse bows then, so let's call them composite bows. Let's use the material to describe the bow. That makes more sense. It's a neutral term. You can use it to describe bows shot from horseback and bows shot from foot. Most composite bows have this kind of design or something very similar to it. So it makes sense to call these composite bows, right? The problem with the composite bow label is that the word composite strongly implies the method of construction, and in composite bows, the materials were horn, sinew, and wood, and that's what was used to make composite bows. If a bow is not made from composite materials, you can't call it a composite bow. Good example, are these bows. As aesthetically pleasing as this bow, and especially this bow, this has been a crowd favorite on the channel. As great as they look and as traditional and old school as they look, these are fiberglass. I mean, yes, they've got wooden sections like the seers, but they're actually fiberglass. These are fairly cheap and affordable for most people because it's a fiberglass bow that's covered with leather or ray skin or snake skin or something else to make it look traditional. That's the same with this bow. So these are definitely not composite bows because they're made from fiberglass. That's not a bad thing, mind you. Apart from being cheaper, fiberglass is much more durable and there's basically no maintenance. So this is actually a really good choice if you're looking at buying this kind of bow for yourself. But like I said, fiberglass isn't composite. So technically, these are not composite bows. So we can't call them horse bows, we can't really call them composite bows. So I guess we can refer to them by region, so Asiatic bows. And that's another fairly well understood term. So in the ancient times, anything that was east of the Bosphorus was Asia. So what is now Turkey or Anatolia would have been considered Asia. So everything east of Turkey would have been Asiatic or Oriental or Asian basically. And that also presents problems because not all users of these kinds of bows were from Asiatic regions or peoples, and not every Asiatic bow had this particular shape. So we have problems. So what do people call these bows? Well, to be honest, I don't really know. I don't think there's a consensus in the community. I think for the large part, most people will understand what you're talking about if you use the words horse bow or Asiatic bow, because this is by far the most common image of an Asiatic bow or a horse bow. So technicalities aside, I think that's what more people understand. Within the traditional archery community, I think people are more inclined to use specific types of bows. So the Magyar bow or the Hunnic bow or the Turkic bow or the Mongol bow or the Manchu bow, just to be more clear on which region and which time frame we're talking about, because all these types of bows have distinct features which were unique to each region or each culture. So yeah, being specific would be a lot more helpful when discussing certain kinds of bows. By saying Asiatic bow or horse bow, we do run the risk of making generalizations which may or may not be accurate. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting, if not helpful. This is NUSensei, and I'll see you next time.